Hello, my name is Jeffrey Petrone, and I'm here to do a review of a whiskey. Je For some reason, I always struggle with this. Jeptha Creed, which you haven't figured out. Jep, my initials, Jep. I like saying Jeptha, but that's not the name of this whiskey. Jeptha Creed, produced and distilled in Shelbyville, Kentucky. I briefly went out to the distillery when I took a recent road trip to Knoxville, which you can hear a little more about on Sunday's episode of Storytime with Jeffrey, the inaugural episode. But yeah, I went to the distillery. They were closed. That is not the story, but I had been hearing things about them for a while. I can't even pinpoint a direct source, but the Whiskey Tribe definitely was a big kind of thing of me hearing about them. And, currently they are the only distillery in Kentucky that does have a female master distiller, as far as my knowledge is. And it is a straight bourbon whiskey bottled at 98 proof, 4 grain, and every single grain in here is fascinating, at least to me. You have Bloody Butcher corn, so of course it says on the bottom, Bloody Butcher corn, made with Bloody Butcher corn. It's just I think it's an heirloom varietal, but it is a different variety of corn than your standard yellow corn. And all the other grains in the whiskey are malted. So you have malted rye, malted barley, and malted wheat, which makes for a very tangy, at least in my experience, whiskey. It's spicy. It's not funky, but you get a lot of these weird kind of elements, and it just has this nice zing to it that I haven't really discovered in many other whiskeys. And also, now that we're 2 minutes in, I do still want to point this out. The bottle design is just really fantastic. Now, of course, this is a great opportunity to examine the color, which isn't really of note. I know people generally will bring this up, but it's just kind of a light, pale amber-ish. I don't know. It's a glorious whiskey color, if that means anything to you, but a nice kind of almost horn pattern, maybe wood. And then on the bottom you have some symbols, which I believe are possibly Irish, although I am entirely out of my depth. But this, for a craft distillery, as far as I know, is a really just outstanding kind of design. 49% alcohol, translates to 89 proof, which I mentioned earlier. And it is 2 years old, or as the bottle states, at least 2 years old. And yeah, I am really, really excited to try this. I believe it was bottled, or at least put to market in May of this year, May 2019. So yeah, and this is possibly their first release of their own stuff, at least of this. I know they've released other things, but I have not followed the brand. And now that we're 4 minutes in. So, on the nose, I've been sick recently, so I felt like I was possibly smelling like just something off, because the only thing I've really had to drink is this in small amounts in preparation. But it smells sort of like what I have in mind for a cocktail that I put together called Garden Tea, which is combining like an herbally, not floral, but like the dirt kind of like flower and garden type of whiskey, with, some kind of like a herbalish liqueur, elderflower in this case, and some iced tea and some other things to kind of have like a gardeny whiskey cocktail. This sort of is the smell that I had in mind when I was crafting that. I've seen people mention like specific flowers. I don't really know what flowers smell like. I've heard hydrangea come up. I'm already forgetting the name of another one, but if you said this smelled sort of like morning glory seeds and some dirt in a garden section at Walmart, you know, you're not wrong. Just kind of spicy. It smells like the spice section at like a Whole Foods, like the really niche spices. Maybe cardamom. If you really get in there, I would say you can maybe smell some like kind of candies a bit, not really a specific kind. Like a cream filled like Werther's almost. I almost just want to keep smelling this because of just how, you know, odd it is. But yeah, let's engage the legs in hopefully a not horrible manner by just slowly rotating the whiskey around the glass as best as I can with my shaky hand. And almost fell over because you tripped on a rug. So in my experience, this isn't the most oily whiskey, and you kind of can get that from the legs just because there hasn't been that much runoff. But this part of any whiskey review is always kind of, why are you doing this? Well, I'll tell you. On a quick aside, just to continue to let the whiskey aerate a little and just kind of perhaps develop in terms of flavor. Backstory. Why am I doing this video? Well, I got bored. I haven't been doing videos. I posted a poll on Twitter. Not many people answered that poll. To the 4-ish people that did and said, I want you to do a whiskey review, this here is for you. If you appreciate this review, or if you don't, leave a comment below or above, or to the side, or whatever, or write it on a post-it note, or, you know, use a raven. That's always worked for me. Yeah, I really like this nose, even though it's not the kind of nose that you really want to just live in. It's a nice nose to visit occasionally. Things like Weller 107, that's kind of where I live in terms of noses. Trying to come up with something else. Redbreast 12 Cask Strength Edition is a nice kind of nose to live in. But yeah, this is just odd and not funky in how odd it is, but not like green malt, like not like green new wood. I like it. Dusty, expired, maybe a little bit of like mildew. Not just like there's a foul element at play here as well, mixed in with the flour. Maybe it's even herbicide. I do not know. But let's have a taste. Just a tsunami of different flavors. Not all at once, just very distinctly. At first I get some vanilla, some oak, then these spices come in and just kind of different rungs, and each time they tickle the tongue a little. It just kind of, it's dancing on the tongue similar to how rye does, but it's not like a black pepper rye. Almost getting like a leathery cologne-ish, like more of a mild, almost sawdust kind of aftertaste as the tickling kind of dissipates on the tongue. But you know, your classic, when you think of spice, cloves, nutmeg, not really cinnamon, maybe something on the lines of cardamom, which I am not as familiar with. Post the first sip, the nose has become a little more centered on the, not foul notes, but the odder notes. Like, there is no, the candy is kind of completely gone, and it's almost entirely living in the dirt. Like, if I put my finger in here, I wouldn't be surprised if a worm came out. Which isn't bad. This is definitely a whiskey that I don't think I've ever had before in a fantastic way. I would really love to try any of their offerings at cask strength. This is a very specific proof. There might be a reason behind it, but it really does have this interesting flavor that I've never really had before in any whiskeys so far. That might be from the Bloody Butcher corn, which I am not as familiar with, but I am incredibly fascinated with. I know that the folks over at the Cask Strength, Josh, Vito, Bradley, Gretchen, have done through Josh a single barrel pick of one of my favorite Texas whiskeys, Iron Root Republic, their Harbinger. And that is a Bloody Butcher featured whiskey. That is a Bloody Butcher forward product. I could be wrong. Josh, let me know, or I'll just go back and be like, oh yeah, I was wrong. But professionalism. I'm gonna leave all this in. So yeah, it could be from that. Although my inclination is it might be from malting the rye, which I've never really experienced before in a whiskey, although I do know it is something that is being done more and more recently. Of course, malted barley, not going to be the weirdest, oddest thing, considering all of the malt whiskeys that I have behind me, the scotches and American malt whiskeys, etc., etc., etc. But I think a big factor of this tanginess comes from malting the wheat. And that train you heard, it's here to take me to Flavor Town as I go in for big sip, numero, uno, or as we in America say, dose. You get a light Kentucky hug. It's more as it goes down, more of like a Kentucky pat on the shoulder, like good job, champ. You feel welcome, but it's not like a full bear hug. It's bright, but it's not metallic. So far, it's a damn fine whiskey. a tinge of pecan, if you would. I know I've seen in one review, which I will probably link below because out of all the reviews I've seen so far, it was in fact my favorite. Toasted pecan, and also it does go over some of the history a little bit more than I did in this video. And if you're at all interested in the distillery, outside of just like going there or buying the product, I highly recommend, not only reading, anything you can find on Jeptha Creed from their websites, but checking out that review as well. So I will definitely link it below, etc., etc. Very good stuff. The finish is very much a lot of spice, but it's not overwhelming. It's just a diminishing kind of a lingering bit from all the things hitting your tongue, just in a more clear way, even though it's quiet. It eventually vanishes, but on the tail end of the tongue, I am getting somewhat of not a peppery note, but just like a peppery vapor. So in that quick little sniff before I took a sip, I got the cream candy kind of back. Vanilla, just oak up front, and then that just gets stomped and by this mill of spice. Just if I had to interpretive dance my way through this whiskey. But yeah, if you're as much of a nerd as I am when it comes to whiskey, and I know you haven't been able to see most of the cabinet, this is some of the collection. But yeah, if you happen to share my passion, I would recommend a few things. Drinking Jeptha Creed, joining the Whiskey Tribe if you haven't already, subscribing and leaving a comment, liking or disliking this video to your preference. And if you thought this video was real extra special good, just be like, yeah, that is good video. I'm gonna share it now. So yeah, thank you for watching. I know this has been a long endeavor, but when I drink whiskey, I really like to get into it. And considering the fact that there aren't really many reviews on this whiskey, I thought I would, in terms of video, I thought I would do a rather extended, some would argue, self-important review. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I have been Jeffrey Petrone, the Good Haircut Haver. Highly recommend this whiskey. And if you need a reminder visually of what it looks like, just look for this visually stunning bottle. I mean, just everything about this bottle is just amazing. I wish more places were releasing bottles with this level of care put into the design. And even though you have some things, oh wait, no, it is a Scottish emblem. Don't worry, people in the comments, I have realized it's probably Scottish. But yeah, just to finish out, I'm going to read the little bit of text on the bottle. Our family motto from ancient Scotland is Ni Oble. Ni Oble. Sorry for the obvious mispronunciation. Even the word mispronunciation was probably mispronounced, which loosely translates to don't forget where you came from. Jeptha Creed is the embodiment of this maxim as we honor our family, state, and local heritage. Being in good company makes everything better. The same is true for our 4-grain mash bill. By bringing together our bloody butcher corn, malted rye, malted barley, and malted wheat, each grain's distinctive flavor comes forward in just the right way. The perfect amount of spicy and sweet, toasty and earthy. It's simply delicious. But there's nothing simple about it. And I agree wholeheartedly, it does embody all 4 corners of those flavors: spicy, sweet, toasty, earthy. It's a little light in terms of how sweet it is, but obviously it does contain a good amount of corn. I would say at least 51% corn if it is a bourbon legally. But in terms of other bourbons I've had, it's not the sweetest thing. It's about as sweet, but definitely different in a lot of ways to like a Michter's Sour Mash, which has less than 51% grain of, less than 51% corn. Professionalism. Brought to you by me, Jeffrey Petrone. Thanks for watching. Cheers.